What is up, everybody? Welcome to Mongols. I am not your host. I am not Mike. I'm Steve. I'm here with Kev. We're going to talk about soccer. We've got a lot to talk about the Hounds, so let's go.
Welcome, Steve. That was very good. When the parents are gone, the kids will play, right? That's what I say.
Right.
We're already
so Kev, you're in control of like all the behind the scenes stuff tonight.
All the buttons,
new background,
new backgrounds.
Yeah, this is great. Like
we might change it throughout the show. Like we're already on to another background. So let's just.
So Kev, what's been going on for you?
I mean, in personal life, nothing much to talk about. It's been a good weekend. Summer's here. Humidity's picking up, at least down here. I don't know. How's the humidity in Pittsburgh? I'm guessing it's lingering.
No, much better. So today, beautiful day, like 80, 81 degrees, way better than the 90 something degree, like tailgate that we had on Saturday. The rain came in. I was hoping it was going to pull the humidity out. No, it just made it worse.
Yeah.
I changed my shirt before going into the game and then was still soaked by halftime. I mean, it was rough. Nice to have better weather. Nice to have, just like things slow down a little bit before tomorrow. So.
Yeah. Before getting into, blue sky Riverhounds and everything too. I was watching, I don't know, I've been on a weird, like superhero movie kick. I guess, I don't know. I didn't see the Ant-Man movie when it came out in theaters, but I guess it just hit Plus. And so we're like, sure, we'll watch it. I thought it was okay. And then Riley had Shazam on and I was like, I thought that was okay. And, so.
Hey, look, Charles Brokaw likes the background.
Oh, I don't even have the chat up on my screen. Nice.
So I'm going to be honest. I'm so out of the loop with what movies are coming out, right? Like the Monday Night Mongols is like my pop culture,
then you need to get out more.
When Josh is talking about whatever they're doing, I'm glad Josh knows pop culture because otherwise I might ignore it. That I don't even know which Ant-Man movie you're talking about. Is it the second one, the third one? I don't even know how many there are.
There's a lot, but there's the newest one. Yeah, that one.
Should we stop talking about ourselves?
I think we should. I think we should start talking about the Riverhounds.
We should talk about the Riverhounds.
Well, so leading up to me and you doing this podcast together.
Yeah,
I was thinking, it might be too much to say, but removing maybe really big events like thrashing Birmingham at home in the first round of the playoffs, I can't really think, since we've been doing this podcast, of a better stretch to be like a Hounds fan and for us doing this podcast. This stretch is incredible. I'm going to rattle off some very quick things here that I'll keep repeating and coming back to and we can discuss about. But so we're nine games unbeaten, six wins in a row, unbeaten at home, second place in the East, continually selling out crowds. And oh, by the way, we've knocked off 2 MLS teams in the Open Cup, and we're on to our third. And it's blue skies, and I really think this might be the most the most optimistic, best patch that we've been in as a club. And I'll repeat, as a club, not just as a team, but as we've been doing this podcast. I don't know.
I think I completely agree with everything you said. Okay. So are we talking about Phoenix or are we just talking about everything?
This was more.
Are we getting into the discussion? Can we talk about Phoenix? Phoenix was a win.
There's no rules. We can get wherever you want.
Hey, Josh, that's for you.
Very good.
So that's your victory beverage pop. No, I agree. I mean, so we can go back. I mean, we've all talked about it as a group, some of us on air, some of us in the background, but I think everybody's talked about the Columbus game and just how big of a moment that was. And I think part of that you just alluded to, right? It's not just what's happening as a fan of the team on the field. It's also what's happening throughout the club as a whole, right? To see over 6,100 fans at that game, to see 5,100 fans on Saturday against Phoenix again, right? Like the only game that hasn't sold out at home this season was the home opener when it was dreary and threatening to rain on a cool late March evening, right?
Like, and even at that, like attendance was pretty good.
Something, right?
Yeah.
Like it was where we felt good 2 years ago about attendance, right?
Yeah.
We're like, oh, look, that's a high attendance match. We're way beyond that this year. And I think there's a lot of things that go into that. Obviously, something's working. Maybe it's what's happening on the field. But I think it's more than that, because why are we getting fans to some of the games before the results started really, really paying off? I think it's what the front office is doing. I have no idea what the advertisement looks like. Like I said, I don't know what's happening in pop culture. Like Enclave over here, if I don't see something on Reddit, right? Like I'm off Twitter at this point. Like, I don't know. I don't listen to the radio. I don't watch TV live. So I don't know what the Hounds are doing to advertise, but something's working.
I could say this. I mean, so I don't even know how I got on this like text message chain, but I now receive texts from the Riverhounds Club, like saying like, oh, like get your tickets, or like this weekend it's going to be such and such night, or whatever. And even if I live in Knoxville, even if I'm not going to the games, it's something where it pops up in front of my eyes, and then it just reminds me of thinking of the Riverhounds, and it kind of, I don't want to. I don't know. Sometimes I do and I don't. I think there's a place for trying to view like your support of your hometown club through commercial lenses. And if you want to view it through that way, then the idea of brand building is very relevant. And by just sending out like messages to people who don't find them annoying, is relevant to keep your club like in the mindset of the community in Pittsburgh. So I thought that was nice. I mean, driving around, I don't know, like, okay, so you just said like, you don't listen to the radio, you don't listen to what, but do you like, is there like billboards? Are there like, I've seen some, no? Oh, okay.
I mean, I drive to Oakland home and to the Hounds games and home, and I might go out to Lawrenceville, or I might go visit friends right? Like, okay, so this is not you, Kevin. This is
not
Kevin.
Me, but this is another Kevin.
This is not my counterpart talking to me, Kevin, but Kevin is seeing way more Facebook ads, text, etc. So that's great. Yeah, no, I don't know what all the things are. Talking to people in the organization, they're speaking really highly about the new television deal this year with the CW, and so I think they're really high on that. I think that's paying off. I'll say this though. I mean, going down to my local Victory beverage dispenser
establishment,
the one that has that pours it into a glass for you. Talking to different people there. I mean, down there tonight, talking to a couple, and they're talking about, oh, like you follow the Riverhounds? Yeah, we want to come to a match. Like we've heard lots of good things. I got dinner at a local Latino grocery store, and I've met the owner around town a few times. Like I know him decently well, and he's talking about like wanting to try to get some of the players that are Hispanic to come to his grocery store grand opening, right? Like it's that type of thing where it's like people are talking about it and people are recognizing that the Hounds are good. And the number of people that when they hear I know something about the Hounds are just like, oh man, they're really good, aren't they? Like they're doing really, really well. And so I think that's great. I don't know. I think it was the Steel Army Discord I was scrolling through and just saw something about Mark Madden. I mean, you can have your opinions about Mark Madden. I don't pay attention at all, but I get a lot of mixed reviews. But writing something about the Hounds, right? Like,
right.
I think that's important. That type of level of media exposure is happening, and it's great.
Yeah. And, we've gone 9 minutes and 40 seconds without really even getting into the details of Cincy.
Right.
So, it just, I don't know, it kind of reiterates just how much of a positive atmosphere there is around the club right now. So let's talk a little bit more about the specifics around the Cincy game.
Do we want to talk about Phoenix first?
Or sorry, yeah, geez. I'm jumping ahead of myself. I meant Phoenix. Freudian slip.
You're just excited to talk about Cincy. Are you driving up?
But let's what?
Are you going to drive up? Come on,
Ha
I'm going to
ha
be
ha.
there.
No, no. You had to give it to me. Michael wasn't here, so yeah. But no.
It's a shorter drive for you than it is for me.
Let's talk about Phoenix before we talk about Cincy. So 1-0 win at home in front of a big crowd on the weekend
Yeah.
against a middling Phoenix side.
Yeah.
Ordonez gets his third goal in a row in 3 games.
Yep.
He makes it count just
Yep.
as the previous week. And Jamali Waite has a good game. And overall, it felt like a game where, if you want to be up at the top of the table competing for big things at the end of the season,
Right.
These are the kind of games that you have to go through, and you have to come out the other side with 3 points.
Right. I agree. I think some big takeaways for me from that game is Herculean defensive effort when the team didn't play their best.
Yeah.
I mean, found a goal on a set piece again. And at some point after Mike gets back from his vacation, maybe if it's on his vacation at some point, he's able to post the interview I did post game with Arturo. But just hearing Arturo talk about what he's done in the past year to capitalize on those opportunities that he was missing last year and find ways to get in the box and to get in position to put those balls towards net on frame in the back of the net. The quote I loved from him in that was every set piece is an opportunity to score.
Yeah.
But I also want to say, he's a guy that, key to the defense at this point, cleared a ball off the line, had a reckless challenge that he knew was reckless, but he felt like he needed to make the tackle, got the yellow card for it, and made a excellent clearance on the ball that came into the box after that. And I'll say, this was a Hounds team that was under pressure because for some reason the forwards were not putting pressure and controlling the ball. The midfield was dropping a little too deep, and a lot of Phoenix's opportunities. You look at the stats from the game. Phoenix had a ridiculous. What was it? I don't remember what the final numbers were, but I know towards the end of the second half, it was something like 59 to 41% possession. And it was much closer.
At the end of the game, it looks like they were on 65%.
Yeah. They were peppering the box with crosses, putting things towards goal. I joked with Jamali after the game that the only reason he had the best game of the season for himself is because he had to do something. I think he had his best game of the season, but he actually had to do something for once. And
I want to interject quickly on the Jamali Waite stuff because I think in the past I love a kind of, I don't know, assessing by like the eyes and not necessarily by the numbers. I like viewing goalkeepers through the lens of like how many points are they winning you a season, and at a minimum, you want your keeper to be kind of neutral, where they're not winning you points, but they're not losing you points either. You're not 1-0 up in a game and a ball slips through their hands and it goes in or something. This was a game where I felt like Jamali Waite won us points, where it wasn't just that one big save that he makes, that's curling on the top corner. He has to do a lot more throughout this game. And I think he's a big reason this stays 1-0. And
and so I think what you're saying in that is that he had the opportunity to win us points because other people were not doing as well as they could have, right? Like balls were coming in, or the team was much better, right? Against us, right? As opposed to he had nothing to do.
Right. Yeah. Right. No, I think there are points in the season where inevitably you're going to hit games where, for whatever reason, your keeper is going to be called upon more. People are off of it or whatever. But yeah, no, I agree.
But so we can talk about the run of form that the Hounds are on, and we can look at the game in Monterey. And I think this is a good comparison game where we're up against a team that has some opportunities. and has some players that can score, but rather than conceding like we did in Monterey twice, we were able to find a way to get that win, whether that's Jamali, whether that's Arturo, other players sacrificing things to make sure that they kept the ball out of the box, out of the net.
Yeah, and it's a good call on the Monterey thing. I'm just going back to the Monterey game now and just looking at the lineups. I know you did some good work, kind of compiling all the lineups.
That's flattery. I just copied and pasted.
Dude, it's way more than what I do normally. But it is striking where I'm looking at lineups from the Monterey game, and I don't know, something that maybe hasn't been highlighted yet because we've been able to win is we've been doing it without Dequa, right? Like for a large portion of the season. I mean, up until when Kiza scores 2 goals against I forget who.
Vegas.
Yeah. Up until that point, I mean, we're really looking at Dequa being the answer to any goal like that we need.
Right.
So the idea, at that point in the season, the idea where we're going to hit, not just a game, but a couple where we're going to have, regular season games where we're going to have to play without Dequa. You're hoping, okay, well, maybe we can get 2 draws or something like that. But, to be able to, at the beginning of the season, we were struggling to get shutouts. Now we're getting shutouts. At the beginning of the season, we were unable to score without Dequa. Now we're scoring without Dequa. I mean, granted, it's from, in both cases, it's from Ordonez. And I don't know how long that'll continue to last. But, I mean, to be able to do this in the absence of Dequa is just huge.
But I mean, I think that's part of what goes into a successful season, isn't it? Like when you're not finding the ways that you're normally able to get your results, somebody else is finding a way to step up and do something, right? And so, you look at that game against Vegas, and Eddie puts the game-winning goal in, or the goal put us ahead, and then eventually the one that would have been the decisive goal before the other 2 goals came in, right? Like, I mean, if it was only his 2 goals, it's a 2-1 game as opposed to a 4-1 game. And so you're finding guys that are scoring in important moments between him and Arturo right now. And no, do I want to see a center back shooting up the goal scoring charts? I mean, like, it's not that I don't want to see that. I don't want to see Arturo at the end of the season being our second best goal scorer.
Because I think if that's the case,
exactly,
it's not good.
Exactly. I want to see Tola get on the score sheet and score 5 this season. I want to see Eddie put 9, 10, 11 goals in the back of the net.
Forbes,
Right. And I was talking to a buddy about this recently, and he was saying, like, oh man, we need something more than just Dequa putting the goals in the back of it. I was like, we're getting that, but also, like, how many people were frustrated in the past seasons where we'd have 4 or 5 guys at 4 goals and 1 guy at 7, and be like, oh, we don't have a really clear focus of our attack, right? Like so pick what you're complaining about. And if we're complaining about this season, we're complaining about being second in the East, in the quarterfinals of the Open Cup, facing the best team maybe on the continent right now, on Tuesday, tomorrow night.
Which is a hard thing to say about Cincy.
No, like, they're ridiculously good right now. But then also, like, the team that's ahead of us in the table is who we have at home on Saturday.
And right? it's a 1 point difference, right? So, like, the game
exactly, right? Like winner take all on Saturday. And if you had told me that the Hounds were going to be in this position before May started, I don't think any of us on the pod or most fans would have been in the position where we are, which I think goes to what you're saying, that best period in podcast coverage of the Hounds history, if not ever.
No, it's so I want to talk. I want to kind of go back to Ordonez a little bit, because I think he becomes, in the absence of Dequa, Ordonez fills the role. Unlikely hero, I'm not sure. I think, most of the season, I think he's been showing his quality, his leadership. As an offhanded comment, I threw it out like a week or so ago about, Ordonez being captain material and really showing a lot of leadership qualities. I think, I mean, I think we were, at the beginning of the season, I was around scratching my head like, man, I don't know how many leaders we have on the field. I think over the course of the season, Dequa grew into it and showed a lot of leadership capabilities pretty quickly, actually. And I don't know. Ever since in the absence of Greenspan or Hugh Roberts, maybe even Vonkiacio and somewhat of a silent leader along the defensive line, I think we were kind of lacking that a little bit. And I think Ordonez has really kind of come into his own now. Having 2 game winners and 2 shutouts and playing really well. I think, he's made player of the week for the USL or like team of the week for the USL, I think a couple times. So,
yeah.
I mean, Ordonez is just kind of on fire right now. I think it was something that not needed, but is nice now that we have it.
Well, I think what it does is it provides leadership throughout the field, right? I mean, we can talk about Kenny's leadership. Maybe not the most vocal, maybe not the one that's going to get the most animated on the field. But definitively, I mean, you talk to players throughout his time as a Hound. You talk to Bob, you talk to him. He's going to be quieter, but he's going to be really, really strong in his leadership. And he's going to pull guys aside, is the sense I get. I think what's been really fun for me to see over the course of this season, and so I don't know if this is something I should be allowed to talk about or not. But going to practice at times, and when Junior was still out, Bob coming over him to ask him like, "Hey, are you seeing what I'm seeing? Like I'm seeing this, blah blah." Like Bob asking a player who's on the sidelines injured, but like observing, like I'm making sense, right? Like I'm not making this up, right? Like that speaks to me of the leadership that he sees in someone like Junior. I wish I had known you were going to talk about this. I don't know if I would have had the time to, but like now I'm wondering like who's worn the armband this year. I know Kenny has. I know Robbie has. I think Danny has at one point or two. I think Chico has.
I think so
once,
too.
Right?
Yeah, I don't know if Dequa started games with the armband, but I know he's finished them with the armband.
Right. But so like that's a like I think like it's insignificant in like the grand scheme of things, but it's really significant when you think about what does that mean in terms of the team dynamics and Bob's relationship with who he sees as leaders on the field in the moment, right? Like who does he want speaking for the team if somebody has to go speak to the ref? And you're right. Like I'd also put Jamali in that conversation as a leader. I mean, with the experience that he's had with Jamaica, the growth that he's had as a keeper, and talking to him a couple weeks ago about how he was feeling about things. Just like, I mean, a guy that I think has really, really stepped up.
He's shown confidence. I mean, there's been like something, I don't know, just something in the way he's moving, something in the way he distributes balls to like restart play. He has a posture about him that it's of a keeper that is confident in his abilities and knows he's in a good moment.
Yeah. So, I mean, you started this conversation with leadership, and one of the things that jumped to my mind is most improved. And I was just kind of, as you were just beginning to talk, thinking about like, if we were to at this point, and I don't remember if there's a Steel Army in the Player of the Year voting, if there's a most improved player category. I'd love to see it if there's not. I just can't remember. But I find myself thinking like, I don't know that I could pick the most improved player that was on the roster last year that is on the roster this year at this point. Because I've got 3 contenders definitively that without a question, I'd be like, I could pick any of these 3 guys.
Okay, I'm going to guess. Okay, so Dequa, Ordonez.
Okay.
And I actually don't know the third. The third's a question mark for me. I don't know.
You've only gotten one of my picks, actually. I think Dequa was a good shout, but I wasn't thinking Dequa.
Oh, so I guess my quick case for Dequa is I think when the season started, I was like 10 goals maybe this season, and I would say that's a pretty good, return. I think he's going to
Well, and in all comps, he's at 10
Exactly.
already.
He's well beyond
Right.
that, and I think he's evolved as a player. Yes.
No, I think he definitely deserves to be in the conversation. I think I just look at him more as it's not that he wasn't this good or wasn't close to this good last year. It's just that he had a lot more competition for who the focus of the
Right.
attack was with Russ and
Right.
Alex on
Yeah.
the roster. I would put uh, Arturo Ordonez,
Let me
Jamali
guess the last
Waite,
one.
and Nate Dos
Oh, okay, never
Santos.
mind.
Sorry.
Well, it wasn't going to be Dos Santos. I was going to say
Okay.
I've been impressed with Ibarra's trajectory over the
Okay.
course, but yeah,
Yeah.
Dos Santos has played really well too.
Yeah, I think the difference is I don't see as much of a difference with Ybarra in terms of like material difference on the field. I think he is better than he was last year. But I think you look at Nate and he's become a good uh, outside back and a three center back, which is what he played in college. So moving back into that, but then still has the opportunity to go wide as a wide back. But seeing him in that center back role, I think has just been like with all of the speed and the coverage. I think that's one of the biggest differences is his flexibility to get back in that position. It's just like it's
I didn't know
insane.
he
Like
played that role in college. That's a really interesting.
yeah, he played as a center back. Apparently, I only know this because of talking to Grubba
Right.
about it. It's not something that I knew, but Grubba was like, "Oh yeah, he definitely played as a center back." And I was like, "Oh, okay, thanks."
Nice. Yeah, no, I think Dos Santos is a really good shout on that. Yeah, I think at the beginning of the season, I distinctly remember having a chat on here with Josh about saying I think our weakest part of the team in that moment was our fullbacks, and like Dos Santos was part of that conversation. And yeah, I mean, just the absolute transformation now where, yeah, he is rock solid back there. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's good. That's a good call. Do you want to transition into a little bit around the conversation around like the lineups over the past, month or so?
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I shared that spreadsheet with you. I mean, it's just lots and lots of
Yeah.
names. I think the question, because I mean, Mike talked about this last week in terms of the Columbus game, and how I said to him that like you guys were talking Monday night before that. I forget who about so and so and so and so. Look how they've worked their way into the starting 11. I was like, I'm not convinced they've worked themselves into the starting 11 as opposed to in games where the schedule is compressed, the need for rotation. Bob is really comfortable turning to a lot of different guys. Um, and with that, even in the post game on Saturday night, he wasn't happy that the defense was under so much pressure, but he also recognized that, like there's been a lot of different players that have been playing together, and the synergy might not be there when there's so many changes week to week, game to game. And so the team is still performing with a lot of those changes happening. And I think that's for me the takeaway that there's so many guys coming in and out of the lineup. I mean, but it keeps changing, and as it keeps changing, you start to see that the team is still finding ways to get results.
Yeah, no, I mean, and to your point around, so Dikwa being out is a little bit of a wrench in looking at like consistency in starting 11s over the past month and a half. So I mean, Kiza gets 3 starts in a row, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, unless Bob wants to play 2 up front, I mean, that's Dikwa's position when he comes back like fit and ready.
Sure.
But I mean, looking, a consistency has been. I mean, Forbes has been a mainstay in this lineup. I think I've been critical isn't the right word. I've been wondering how Forbes will be managed as years roll by in his career. And yeah.
So, yes, but consistent in the lineup in league games. He hasn't started either of the Open Cup games against the MLS teams.
I don't want to jump ahead too much, but it's crying out for it. I mean, do you think that continues against Cincy?
I think so. I don't think it is a question of quality. I think it's a question of Kenny's ability to play 65, 70 minutes 3 times in a week, as well as his speed on the pitch. That I think Bob is much more willing to put him in positions where the play is not going to be as fast. But I'm wondering if he recognizes that he wants Kenny to be in as a stabilizing presence, not as a what do we have to lose? We're playing an upper division team. There's like we're not expected to win, so let's go all out and let's put the speed out there. Let's put the younger guys that have the energy that can do the press. I think it's a lot more of that.
And in scenarios, I mean, it's essentially restating what you just said, but maybe in a slightly different perspective. In the Open Cup games, we're not expected to be sitting on the ball for a while. And
Right.
and that's when Kenny comes alive, right? If we have possession,
Right.
if we're looking at taking apart defenses, well then great. But we're not, we're expected to get goal scoring opportunities in these Open Cup games by countering quickly and just trying to hit them quick.
Yeah. Well, and he came in, was that the 65th minute in at New England and the 57th minute at home against Columbus, right? So both of those after we were up 1-0, trying to put a strategy in place that was much more focused on controlling the game as opposed to pressing and looking for those attack opportunities.
Right. I'm trying to remember too. I mean, I'm trying to remember when Griffin came into the team. It feels like he never left, but at least back until the Monterey game. Griffin's been a mainstay. The only reason, I mean, to your point, the only thing that kind of messes things up a little bit is those Open Cup games where I think, as you said, Lily's rotating a little bit, so Griffin kind of comes in and out. But I mean, if we're looking for people that we know are in the starting lineup, I think he makes that list with Forbes maybe have an asterisk next to it, but I think Griffin probably makes that list.
So I just scrolled through. May 3rd was the official announcement on the Hounds website.
He's been in it since. I mean, like,
right, and so, but that was 2 days before the Monterey game, right? So, Kev, your boy. I mean, the team's in the best stretch of its existence that we.
You might be right. Case. You might be right.
And it's since Danny Griffin came back.
Yeah, no, you might be right. I mean, people, Pittsburgh sports all the time on YouTube commenting. Yeah, in my opinion, Danny has made a big difference in the team. Yeah, no, I mean, undoubtedly, he's made a huge difference in the team. I can't even say anything. I'm just gonna leave it there.
So I'll say this, right? Like in my conversations with him, in conversations with Grubba, and conversations with Bob, the ability to have players like Junior and Zvetslut in the game allows Danny to play much more.
Next is Zvetslu's name, okay? He's way better.
Oh, he absolutely is. But it frees Danny up to be able to be a more attacking or more advanced midfielder than what he's been doing for the past 3 seasons as a Hound, which I think is much more of his natural talent set, right? Like, so Bob was forcing him to be back to push another player into a Bob Lilly defensive role, as opposed to giving the player the opportunity to excel at what they're best at. Now he doesn't have to do that because he's got other defensive midfielders that he can count on that are true defensive midfielders.
Quick context around. There's a question: why don't I like Danny Griffin? I need to contextualize this. It's not that I don't like Danny Griffin. I think he's a very good player. I think last season, in my opinion, his impact to the team felt a little overplayed. I think he was an absolute engine. He played so many minutes, and he was a solid, I think, support unit, general defensive, maybe box to box midfielder in the team. And so I thought he was just a good USL midfielder. I think he's kicked in a midfielder where I thought, like, you could probably find other people that generally do his role pretty well as far as what he was doing last season. This season, he's came in and he's been, a revolution, and he's been higher up the field. He's been scoring goals. He's creating chances. He's winning games. I mean, he's showing he's bringing that engine further up the field, putting more bodies in the box, and making big differences. So I think Danny's is great. Okay, well, I guess before we do have, I mean, I imagine we're going to talk about the Cincy game probably a little more than the Charleston game, but I touch on both of those games a little bit before we transition onto that. Steve, what we talked a little bit before about, we want to bring up how on top of all the good feelings around the club, before the Phoenix game, we had, I believe, our first ever wedding at Highmark, which...
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Colin and Cam tied the knot on the field. The front of the Steel Army section, like, people were lined up, people that know them much better than I do. They're nice guys. I don't know them super well, but they're really nice guys. So I was a little further back. So I have no idea, like, what the vows sounded like. It was only a few minutes. I think it might have been Colin's. I don't know if it was his nephew or younger brother or something. I didn't ask. Gave them the rings, but this little kid was like super excited. Like, each of them had one of their parents there, and then they got married on the field. Like, super cool thing to celebrate Pride. I'm glad for them that it was a Hounds win, because
that would have been,
I just imagine, I don't know whose idea it was, but that's like the joke that you always have anytime you're in an argument. Like, well, why'd you make me get married on my Hounds lost day, right? Like, now that joke goes away, so they can just always celebrate that day. But yeah, no, super cool thing. Like, what a cool, unique way to. For the team to allow people to celebrate Pride, for the fans, for the Steel Army, and for Colin and Cam to do that. So super cool. And then afterwards they came around and walked into the stands, and one of the other Steel Army members had gotten a lot of those like little soccer stress balls. So everybody had one, and instead of throwing rice, we threw soccer balls at them.
Nice. Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, I wonder if they're looking at the schedule and they're like, I don't know. What do you think? Like Charleston, maybe not. I don't know. Tampa, maybe not. Phoenix, okay, yeah, let's do it.
No, but it was Pride Day in Pittsburgh.
Oh, okay, well, there you go.
That really helped.
Nice. Oh.
Yeah. Like, no, I was giving somebody else at the tailgate a hard time. I was like, hey, you have sunscreen? And she's like, no, why? Do you need some? I was like, no, but you do, because you can see your nose. Like, oh, no, I was at Pride for 4 hours.
Oh, nice.
It's like, oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense. I was like, sorry, you've got a sunburn.
Nice.
That's where I feel old, when I'm telling people to put sunscreen on.
I'm with you, man. I mean, I got getting moles checked. I'm a fair-skinned guy, and so I'm right there. High SPF.
Yeah.
But yeah. So moving on to the Cincy game.
Yep.
Unfortunate that it's not. I know. I feel like we need a collective little exhale, because I don't know. I mean, it's we all, anytime you go deep in a competition like this, it's going to get difficult, and it's only going to get more difficult, right? So on one hand, yes, you're summiting the mountain a little, or not summiting, but you're getting higher up the mountain with every passing round that you get through. But it's, the weather's a little more dangerous up there. The visibility isn't great. It's colder. It's harder conditions, and I think, this absolutely falls into this metaphor that I'm trying to build. Cincy are in great form. We're not at Highmark. We have to travel to Cincy midweek game. I think we probably see maybe a little bit of influence on that on the starters we see in Phoenix. But yeah, I don't know. Before we even get into the tactics around what you're thinking about this, I mean, how do you feel?
So, I mean, I'm thrilled. I'll be driving out tomorrow. One of my best friends is his mom lives like 20 minutes from the stadium. So two of my buddies from out here. They both come to games a few times. Two of my closest friends. We're all driving out, going to the game, staying at Jimmy's mom's house, and she's coming, and her mom is coming, and her mom's boyfriend is coming, sitting with the Steel
Nice.
Army group. So it's gonna be fun, right? Like, super excited about that. Like, they're just thrilled to like come and see the environment. But what I think close to 30 people are making the trip, if I recall correctly from the last time I checked. So I think like for a game that is almost 5 hours away, like that's a great on a Tuesday
Yeah.
night. That's a great effort from the fans that I know from the Steel Army that are going. I think that we saw a little bit of it in the game, right? Like Chico's still not 100% fit for Phoenix, and
Well,
Eddie
I know you
Kidza.
mentioned this, what I think the last podcast, but what you have the sense that he's probably going to be fine for
I
Cincy.
so from what I have heard from people on the team, including Lily, um, very very high hopeful expectations that he'll be ready for
That's
tomorrow
good.
night. Um, he did not seem concerned with his injury when he passed by me a week and a half ago at practice. Um, and so so it wasn't a serious thing, right? Like it was a knock, a sprain, or something like a pull or something like that,
Right.
right? Like it was not a twisted ankle or anything like that. That's going to take a few weeks to really heal. I get the sense that it was like either a pull, like upper thigh, or a knock to that or something, right? Like something that just like you need a few weeks, but not an extended absence. But also with Eddie having gotten the red card against Columbus at the end of the
Yeah.
game, it was really obvious that, and Bob even talked about this because I asked him, like, you made a couple of substitutions at halftime against Phoenix. It was very much just that he felt he could put a stronger defensive player in place of Burke, and that with Tola Shumi, it was not that he was hurt. It was just that he wanted to manage his minutes because he knew he didn't have Eddie for Cincinnati. And he's like, so I had to make that strategic decision that I think Tola is going to have to play against Cincy. We don't have Eddie available, so I didn't want to run him too hard when I could run, like the plan was Eddie was going to be in for the entire game until his cramp, and then he had to get pulled at the end of the game against Phoenix. So if Dikwa is fully fit, Dikwa and Tola should be very available, and I think we see a really strong and similar lineup to what we saw against Columbus, where you've got
What?
strong defense with fast players at the back. You've got the full strength of the midfield with Etu, Griffin, Mertz, um, uh, one or two other midfielders, and then you're going to see Chico and Shumi up top probably. So
So, as a
um,
reminder, against Columbus, our lineup. I guess I'm gonna slightly. Well, I don't need to ignore the. Well, no, I'm gonna ignore the back line because I feel like we have so many options at like who you play at wing back and who you
right.
play even bring in at center back. But for at least the forwards, yeah. So we have Dequa and Show-me who start against Columbus,
Mm-hmm.
and then our
Yep.
midfield is Mertz, Ibarra, and Griffin. Three young, energetic midfielders
Mm-hmm.
who bring a lot of energy to that. I agree with you. I think Etu maybe comes in for what, because of what I think during the Columbus game is no, was Etu still hurt around the Columbus game? No, he was fine.
Um,
He was fit. Um, I feel pretty confident about that.
he came back. I didn't he make his first appearance back? No, he made his first appearance against the Revs
Yeah,
back.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because he wasn't on the media lineup, but he was on the officials card because he was a super late ad that was it YouTube was streaming that one. Like the announcers from US Soccer, whoever they had for that, I forget who called that game, didn't know that he was
Right,
available. And so he came in and everybody was really
right.
surprised. So he's been back for a little while, but yeah, no, I mean, he came in 74th minute against Columbus. But that's because he had played against Vegas and he had played against the Revs before that. So um,
Yeah,
I think it's more getting him back to match fitness. Um,
Yeah, I think in a way. So I think you're right. I really like your call on probably a midfield of I don't know. So Mertz
mhm,
doesn't start against Phoenix unless I'm unaware of some knock that he's carrying. I would expect
right.
Mertz to play. I would expect Et2 to play
Hmm.
probably.
Hmm.
Griffin seems like a mainstay and like an Open Cup hero at this point.
Yeah.
So I feel like he goes into and then you're kind of fiddling around with whoever you want to play in that back five. But
Right.
and the question
And
becomes:
I
do you
think
think that's enough to threaten Cincy?
I think that is entirely dependent on how Cincinnati approaches this
Mm.
game. So if Cincinnati decides that we are taking no risks, we are good. I mean, they are. I mean, they're really good, right? So they like when we played New England, they were just above Cincinnati at the time. Um, Cincinnati has now gone on to open up a 9 point gap in the standings. No, a 12 point gap in the standings over New England, right? Like so in the past 4 weeks, uh, since he jumped from a point below them to 12 points above them, right? So that's a 13-point difference in the quality of the teams that we faced 4 weeks ago versus this coming week. Um, they're the first team to get 39 points this quickly, right? Like since like MLS had those. If you remember, if anybody remembers that weird like if there was a tie, they didn't end it in a tie, but they had like the one-on-one
Oh, so
shootout where
good.
like you would start like halfway through the field and just start running, right? Like why does that not exist? I don't know. That's not what we talk about, but I miss
Yeah,
it.
me too.
But like since that ended, Cincinnati is the best team at this point in the season of any team in MLS history. They're really good right now.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, what? So it looks like what they're on uh
yeah,
once
they're in a
an
really good
8 game win streak and
something like that. Yeah,
unbeaten in 11.
yeah,
Which, to be fair, not that far away from our form in the USL.
right.
But so I guess I'm wondering.
But it's yeah, no. So I think like to answer your question specifically, right? Like it's how serious does Cincinnati take this game, and that's both in do they care about the cup, and if they do they take the Hounds seriously? If the answer to that is they don't care about the cup or they don't take the Hounds seriously, we've got every opportunity to come out and find a goal because what do we have to lose? Right? Like,
Oh
we're not
yeah,
going to play this as a defensive team where we're like, oh, we're looking for the counter attack. No, we're going to come out. We're going to be looking to score. It's going to be a pretty open game pretty early, I
yeah.
think. And if we get a go ahead goal, then that's when Bob makes the decision of then do we go defensive or then do we keep the high press? What do we do at that point? Um,
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Cincy's, so I'm going through quickly and charting like Cincy's path in the MLS when they got when they got introduced. There you
all right,
go.
I don't
When
know
you
what happened.
back now,
Yeah.
when you chart Cincy's path in the MLS, uh, when they got introduced in the MLS, what back in like 2019 or something. I mean, they were crap in the
Mhm.
MLS for a couple years, and then what I think last season they finished like close to like higher up the table. And then this season is clearly the best season they've had
Yeah.
in the
No, I think
MLS.
what was it? I mean, MLS has the wooden spoon for the team that does the worst in the league.
Yeah.
It's I think all of the Riverhounds, Columbus, or anybody that just empathizes with the Columbus fiasco, the Anthony Precourt wooden spoon, after the former owner of Columbus, just to like mock the guy, right? And it's given to the worst team in the league. And I think Cincinnati has the honor of having it for 3 straight years. I don't think any other team has ever done that in MLS. And then they were okay, and now they're really good. And so their team, right? Like I guess the way I conceptualize this game is going to Cincinnati and looking good no matter what is what the Hounds can do. This is a team that is good. I mean, some of the best players that made a difference in the Open Cup match there last year are firing on all cylinders for them if they're in the game. I mean, you talk about Luciano Acosta came into the game for them last year, started their last Open Cup match, right? Like, so it's not that they're not taking this cup seriously, but it's at this point in the season, how compressed is their schedule, how much do they want to push things when they just had a narrow win against Chicago on Saturday, play again at Vancouver this coming Saturday, right? So they've got to travel to the West Coast. Like, that's got to play into their minds. Those are the things that I think make the difference. They're definitively a much better team. They're not the USL Cincinnati team, right? Like, they're far beyond that.
Yeah.
They've got a lot more money and they're spending that money. And they've been building an organization for years to get to this point. Do I think that that's all doom and gloom for the Hounds? No. But do I think our work's cut out for us? Yeah. Let's just go have fun and have a good showing. And
yeah, no, I think that
Birmingham loses, and then it doesn't matter because then we get the prize money for being the best lower division team.
Oh, see, I'm unaware of that. What?
Oh,
yeah, if you're the best performing lower division team in the cup, you get money.
Now I'm questioning the amount. I want to say it's $25,000.
I mean, that recoups what we had to spend to
host the last round.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Not that was a problem.
But okay, let me put it to you this way, right? Like, that's like next year the league minimum salary will be $29,000 or $31,000. It's $29,000 this year. And so, right, like, so you're talking about a significant portion of a player's salary next year.
Right. Yeah, MT Williams just confirming $25K.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, no. Okay, so yeah, like, to be clear and to kind of reiterate what you just said, I don't think any of us are thinking seriously that since he's not going to take this seriously, and so therefore we're going to win. I think, like, if you're trying to build a case for how we find ourselves through this match and like how this kind of ends up in our favor, I think that kind of is a narrative that is in the cards that could potentially happen in our favor, whatever. I'm not necessarily thinking that is gonna be the case. It might have been different where maybe if this is later in the season, and they're first in the East and they're a point above who's in second place, then maybe that becomes more of a realistic scenario. I mean, at this point, they're like 6 points clear or something up on top. So it's not even like this is like there's someone super close nipping at their heels. So look, it's going to be a tough game, but to a point, like someone made in the comments, and to a point I think you've been kind of alluding to, no matter what happens, I mean, this has been an incredible Open Cup run. I think, at least how I viewed this. Look, I mean, look, I would, you're in any competition you're in it to win it. Like, we're not just here to make up the numbers, and and so I'm still firmly a belief that you take it seriously and you try to win it. But the memories that you can create as a club and as a team along the way is absolutely legitimate and impactful for your fan base. And we've had really good moments already with Columbus, and hopefully that continues in Cincy.
Yeah, and I think the last thing I would say about it is, in the past, I've gotten the sense that Bob Lilly is just going to it's the Open Cup. Like, I'm not going to sacrifice the season for the Open Cup. But the team is like, he has confidence in so many players on the team that his focus definitively was a very different tone about this game on Saturday night, where he was talking about, they're a good team, but we've got to think about how we can find a result in this game.
Yeah.
As opposed to, I'm not gonna focus too hard on that because, Charleston, who's ahead of us, is the team we really need to focus on because winning the league is much more important.
Yeah.
So
I think you're right. I think in years gone by, if a similar scenario where if we're in second and we have the first place team coming to Highmark and on the weekend, we probably don't see a super strong lineup in
right,
a midweek Open Cup game against an MLS
right.
side. I don't think that's going to be the case this time. I think we'll see, good starting players playing for us in this. Because I think, and my last point on this, to build off of something that you said, maybe Lily views the cup, and maybe most USL managers view the cup this way, where it can run away with either positive or negative momentum. And so you can foresee scenarios where in a given year you take a chance and play a strong lineup midweek in an Open Cup game. It doesn't go well. Morale takes a hit and legs take a hit, and then you lose the weekend game, and then all of
Right.
a sudden, things start to snowball. That works in the other direction as well. Like, so, if you get a win, that has a massive push to morale, not only for the players, but for the fans. It gives everyone confidence. And now we're seeing it as an asset rather than a liability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that's 100% true. And I think about that in terms of, is that why we're in the position we are right now? Right? Like, best run of form because we went to New England, and I don't think anybody expected Mark Ybarra to assist a Danny Griffin goal between two defenders as a game win, right? Like that's not something, but it gives you confidence, right?
Yeah.
And then you see Danny, I mean, should have had the goal against, who was that? Birmingham. Got the goal against Vegas, right? Like, you see a guy playing with a ton of confidence, and you see a team playing with a ton of confidence. And I mean, I can't emphasize, to go back to the Columbus game, it wasn't just the environment in the stadium from the fans, but I mean, every guy on the field and every guy that was not playing and was a part of the team was just absolutely thrilled. And you could see it like puts them at a different perspective. I mean, just completely different than anything I've seen from Hounds in the past.
Yeah. So we're getting close to time here, and
We are.
I think rightfully we talked about the Cincy game in the right amount of time. But I will say, I mean, in a league perspective, this is probably one of the biggest games of the year for a league perspective.
You're right, but
Yeah.
do I think Charleston is that good? I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know either. I don't. Charleston is always kind of an enigma for me, season upon season, where I never really remember having a very good time against a Charleston game.
Oh, okay. So historical results against Charleston. So I do know, because I remember having the conversation with Josh and him just going groaning in typical Josh form, that he had to send the supporter shield to Charleston last year. I don't remember what the results were. I think it was a tie and a loss against Charleston last year.
Sounds about right.
But he was just like, really? I've got to pack this stupid thing up and ship it? Right? Like, that's just what I remember, that he was not happy about that.
Yeah.
They're a much better team this year so far than they've been for quite a long time. But the question of how good are they really is, I think, the real question. So granted, they are a team that is sitting at the top of the table, a point ahead of us, one more win, one more loss than us, which leaves them with two less draws. I think what's fascinating is that they are sitting at the top of the table and they've got a negative goal differential. Granted, they had a 7-0 loss to San Antonio, but they had this is a team that lost to a team. It's not like they played Sacramento and lost 7-0, where Sacramento is just wiping the floor with everybody they've played for most of the season. I mean, Sacramento is one of the few teams that is just running away with the league at this point, right? Like, and I look at Charleston, I don't know if they're good or if they've just had a good run of form as everybody else has been getting better. Because if you had told me that Birmingham was not good when we played them, I was like, no, they're a good team. And since then, they've been really bad. They're on a 5-game losing streak, right? Like, so I can't tell if it's just that Charleston got lucky in early results against teams that ended up being better. What I do think is important is that this might be for quite a while the only opportunity that the Hounds have to prove themselves against a team that's ahead of them in the table. And that's a really important statistic for me, because last year, when I looked at the table at the end of the year, the Hounds were abysmal against the teams that finished ahead of them.
Yeah.
And beating teams ahead of us in the table is really important. And so it doesn't matter whether Charleston is good or not. This has to be a win for the Hounds, for them to show that they are for real.
That's a really good point. And I think, I mean, you know, feelings change a lot if this game on the weekend is at Charleston, but I mean, it's at Highmark. We're undefeated at home. And to your point, I mean, like, I think the likelihood of a win is much higher than a loss against Charleston on the weekend, no matter what happens in Cincy.
Yeah.
And so that's what fills me with confidence. And you know, by the time Mike comes back, by the time we record another podcast next week, we could very likely be sitting top of the East. We could have knocked out Cincy. You know, we'll see if that happens. But you know, I don't know.
What I can say for sure is that we will still be in the top two no matter what happens in that game. No. We might have two teams pass us, but if we get a tie,
Jeez, that turned around quick.
That. I did my math bad. I know that was bad math. As long as we don't lose, nobody can catch us, right? Like we're in the position where we're tied at the top of the table. We're still there. We're still in competition. But like I said, like, go out, win this game. I'm not afraid of Charleston.
Yeah. No, me neither. Yeah. And that's different, I think, than what it might have been last year. I think this team has shown not only its quality, but its resilience in the face of a lot of challenge and everything. But yeah.
So, Kev, this is where we have to make the actual
predictions,
hard decisions. Okay, so let's start with Cincy.
See, I was going to get away with this without having to do anything, but all right.
No, because if we don't do this now, then I have no remembrance to put it in on YouTube.
That's a good point.
So this is my only way to ever get a chance to climb up on the leaderboards.
That's a good point. Okay, yeah. All right. Well, look, I'll say for the Cincy game, I think most of the year, I have kept a very objective realism, non-Hounds fandom hat on my head when making these guesses. Kind of throwing that away in the Cincy game, and it feels good to back the Hounds. And you know, they've proven me wrong in 2 Open Cup games in a row. So yeah, why not? I'm a believer. I'll say we win this game 1-0.
All right, keeping the MLS team 1-0 victories alive. I wish I had your optimism. I don't. I am thrilled to say that I think the Hounds are going to come out. They are going to get the go-ahead goal. Ooh. And unfortunately, Cincinnati has so many high-quality players with like $40 million on the bench that they're going to bring off, and eventually they'll tie it and we'll lose 2-1 in overtime. That's my prediction. But we're going to play well, and it's just that you can't compete with a team that literally has a roster that costs 50 times as much as what the Hounds have.
Honestly, I was thinking that number too. I was like, is it 10x? No, it's probably more than 10x. Like it's
I don't know what it is, but I know Acosta was, because I looked it up last year, it was like something like $5.5 million transfer fee.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And if my really crappy math that I talked about last week is anywhere near close, that's 5.5 times of what the Hounds' entire roster is for one guy.
And for the transfer fee, not for his wages.
Right.
So yeah.
Right. I mean, I can say this, that I know for a fact that I don't know if he's the highest paid player on the Hounds. That I don't know. I know for the year, a player that was transferred in after the season begun is the most expensive because we paid a transfer fee for him.
Right.
On the Hounds roster for the year. Right. But I don't think that's actually his salary, right? Like, so he had a small transfer fee, right? Like, I'm guessing his transfer fee was $40,000,
Right.
somewhere in that range.
But none of this matters, Steve, because we're going to win against Cincy.
All right, I like it.
And what do you think about Charleston?
So I think Charleston. I think that I think we're a little tired, but I think that Chico is back to himself, and the only way he doesn't reclaim the top goal scorer numbers for the league is if Russ does something pretty spectacular for Sacramento, but that he gets himself back on the score sheet, and somebody else does as well, and we end up winning the game in a 3-1 win against Charleston, but like the tired legs catch up with us a little bit, and we give up a goal.
I like 3-1, but I'm not going to do it just because I want to. If it is 3-1, I want to get more distance from you in this pick'em table. So
you going higher?
No,
or
I'm
lower?
going to go lower. I'll say 2-0. I'll say 2-0.
Okay.
Waite's feeling it, Ordonez is feeling it, so 2-0.
So I'm going to throw you a complete curveball.
Okay.
So after the Charleston game, Jamali Waite leaves with the Jamaican national team. He goes to Europe for a couple friendlies, comes back to Chicago for a national team game. I think is that Gold Cup? Is that Nations League? I forget which one's which one's first. But plays the U.S. in Chicago after Jamaica gets back from Europe for those friendlies. So we're without our star goalkeeper. Christian Garner, for the majority of the season, has been the guy that has been in the 18. He started the first game of the season. However, in the past 2 games, he has not been in the 18, and Gomes has been in the 18. So who's your keeper that's starting when Jamali Waite is gone?
Danny Griffin could probably do it, right? he's good enough.
All right, that's our show.
I don't know. I will say I get that it is in a season where it looks like every point will matter. That's a stretch that needs to be seriously considered in Jamali Waite's absence. But I don't know, man. I have absolutely no insight into like backup keepers who should be playing what. It is telling that Gomez has been the bench keeper for the past couple games, but I
should clarify this with Grubba. I'm not sure how long he's gone. Have a game a week later at Oakland, and then a week after that, so the 17th and the 24th at home against San Diego. I think the way I conceptualize that is, does it matter? Oakland's 5th. San Diego, where are they? I don't even see. Oh, they're 4th right now, right? So, middling teams in the playoff hunt, right?
Phoenix played us well
with our defense.
Phoenix played us well, and we're 7th when we played this past weekend. So I still do think it matters. I think our defense is playing better, but I think we both agreed that Jamali Waite is also playing better, and the need for him playing better is kind of telling of, okay, well, we still need a keeper that's gonna not lose us points. I think it's relevant, but I don't have the insight on.
Yeah, but I think what really makes that conversation interesting for me is if the Hounds advance in the Open Cup, then that puts if I read the calendar correctly, it puts an Open Cup match in between those games. And so then what does that do? Do we see both of them? Or do we just see one of them?
Good question that we will answer next week, because I don't have Unless you want it, you can keep talking about it because I'm
All right. So we gave our predictions for the Cincy match and for the Charleston match. We will have, because Mike is good at pre-scheduling things to go out on social media ahead of time. We will have those posts up. I don't have to do anything. Kevin doesn't have to do anything. So thanks, Mike. You all should go out and make sure you get your predictions in for both of those games. Hey, you know what? This is our weekly reminder that Black lives, they still matter, and happy Pride. We are still part of the Beautiful Game Network. There's a ton of people doing written stuff, doing podcasts, covering local soccer at all sorts of different levels. We hope that they keep doing what they're doing because we're going to keep doing this even if nobody listens. But head over to bgn.fm and click on the donate button to help us cover our expenses. We thank you for your support for us. Kev, anything else you want to say?
You are wonderfully professional, and I love it. It's so good.
I totally went back and found an old agenda from Mike's, ripped it off and edited it for my purposes. So
very good.
With that, I'm going to say thanks, Kevin. Thanks everybody for listening and joining us, and we'll talk to you soon.
Cheers.
See ya.